In the 1950s, people tried to predict what the year 2026 would look like.
And they weren't being cautious about it either.
They imagined flying cars, robot servants, underwater cities, and family vacations on the moon.
They were completely convinced this was humanity's future.
But here's the strange part.
Some of their boldest predictions never happened, while some of their most unbelievable ideas became so normal that you probably don't even notice them anymore.
So the real question isn't what they got wrong.
It's how people living 70 years ago managed to predict parts of 2026 with shocking accuracy.
While completely missing some of the inventions that changed our lives the most.
Because hidden inside old magazines, television programs, newspaper illustrations, and futuristic advertisements
is one of the greatest experiments in human imagination ever recorded.
They weren't just predicting the future.
They were revealing how the human brain imagines tomorrow.
And that tells us something surprisingly important about ourselves.
Before we go further, subscribe to Cortex Tide if you're fascinated by the hidden psychology, history, and ideas that shaped the modern world.
Because once you understand how yesterday imagined today,
you'll never look at the future the same way again.
Now picture America in 1955.
The Second World War had ended, the economy was booming, and every year seemed to bring another impossible invention.
Television was entering millions of homes. Jet aircraft were shrinking the world. Technology felt unstoppable.
For the first time in history, the future didn't feel distant.
It felt inevitable.
And whenever humans believe progress has no limits,
their imagination begins moving faster than reality itself.
That's exactly what happened in the 1950s.
They looked around and saw a world changing at breathtaking speed.
If airplanes had crossed oceans,
why wouldn't they soon cross the solar system?
If television could bring images into your living room,
why wouldn't robots soon cook dinner and clean the house?
The future looked like a straight line.
Faster machines, bigger cities, smarter technology.
And honestly, it didn't sound unreasonable.
But history has a habit of embarrassing predictions.
Because the future rarely arrives the way we expect.
And the first prediction that proves this was supposed to be parked right outside your house.
If you asked someone in the 1950s what 2026 would look like,
there was a good chance they'd mention flying cars.
Not maybe, not someday.
Practically guaranteed.
Magazine covers showed families lifting off from suburban driveways.
Artists painted highways floating in the sky.
Engineers seriously explored the idea.
And children grew up believing traffic jams would eventually disappear forever.
Looking back, it sounds almost ridiculous.
But at the time, it felt completely logical.
Airplanes were improving every year.
Cars were becoming faster, cheaper, and more common.
So, people simply combined the two.
Car plus airplane. Problem solved.
Except it wasn't.
Not even close.
Because the challenge was never getting a vehicle into the air.
The challenge was getting millions of ordinary people into the air safely.
Think about how many mistakes drivers make every day.
Missed turns, distractions, sudden braking, bad decisions.
On a road, most mistakes are inconvenient.
In the sky, they become catastrophic.
That's the part the predictions missed.
Technology wasn't the biggest obstacle.
Human behavior was.
And that's a pattern you'll start noticing again and again.
The people of the 1950s were incredibly good at predicting what technology could do.
They were much worse at predicting how humans would actually use it.
But here's where things get interesting.
Because while everyone was looking up at the sky,
the real future was quietly emerging somewhere else.
Somewhere nobody expected.
Most futuristic illustrations showed giant machines.
Huge cities, massive transportation systems, enormous inventions.
Bigger.
Faster.
More dramatic.
But one of the biggest technological revolutions in history would move in the opposite direction.
Smaller.
Smaller than a television.
Smaller than a typewriter.
Smaller than almost anyone imagined possible.
And when it finally arrived,
it changed human life far more than flying cars ever could.
The strange part?
The people of the 1950s actually predicted pieces of it.
They just couldn't see what shape it would take.
Because the next prediction they got right wasn't flying through the sky. It was something that now sits in billions of pockets around the world.
The people of the 1950s never imagined smartphones, not because they lacked imagination, but because the technology seemed impossible. Computers at the time filled entire rooms. Some weighed tons. They consumed enormous amounts of power and required teams of specialists to operate. The idea that an ordinary person would one day carry a computer in their pocket sounded absurd.
And yet, hidden inside many of their predictions was something surprisingly accurate. They imagined a future where people could access information instantly, communicate across vast distances, and stay connected no matter where they were. They got the outcome right, they just got the form completely wrong.
In old illustrations, ultra-futuristic people often carried strange electronic devices. Some looked like portable televisions. Others resembled futuristic radios. The details were usually wrong, but the underlying idea was remarkably close. A world where knowledge could travel instantly. A world where distance mattered less and less.
What's fascinating is that they often imagined these technologies as luxuries, something owned by scientists, governments, or wealthy families. Very few people predicted that billions of ordinary humans would eventually carry powerful computers everywhere they went. That's where reality became stranger than science fiction.
Then there were video calls. Decades before apps and smartphones existed, people imagined talking face-to-face with someone hundreds or thousands of miles away. At the time, it felt futuristic. Today, it's so normal that people complain when the connection takes a few extra seconds.
Think about that for a moment. One of the most extraordinary technologies ever created became boring in less than a generation. That's another thing humans consistently fail to predict. Not just technological change, but adaptation. We become accustomed to miracles incredibly fast.
Yesterday's breakthrough becomes today's convenience. Today's convenience becomes tomorrow's expectation. The future keeps arriving, and almost immediately it starts feeling ordinary. That's why many of the most accurate predictions from the 1950s don't even feel impressive anymore.
But there was one area where their imagination became especially bold. They didn't just believe machines would become smaller, they believed machines would become smarter. And this is where some of their predictions start feeling almost unsettling.
Because long before artificial intelligence became a reality, people were already imagining machines that could think, assist, answer questions, and make decisions. They didn't know what those systems would look like, they didn't know how they would work, but somehow they sensed that intelligence itself was about to become technology.
The strange part is that while they were imagining intelligent machines, they completely missed the invention that would transform society more than almost anything else. It wasn't a robot, it wasn't a flying car, it wasn't even artificial intelligence. It was something much simpler, something that quietly connected billions of people together and changed the way humans think, work, learn, shop, communicate, and experience reality itself.
The invention that changed modern life more than almost anything else wasn't predicted very well by the people of the 1950s. That's surprising because they successfully imagined video calls, intelligent machines, and instant communication. Yet somehow they missed the thing that would connect all of them together.
The internet didn't arrive with the drama of a flying car or a household robot. It arrived quietly. At first, it seemed like a tool for researchers and universities. Few people imagined it would eventually reshape how billions of humans work, learn, shop, date, and spend their free time.
This reveals one of the biggest weaknesses in human prediction. We tend to focus on visible technology. We imagine machines, vehicles, and gadgets. What we often miss are systems, the invisible networks operating behind the scenes that quietly change everything.
And once the internet began spreading across the world, the consequences multiplied faster than almost anyone expected. One connection led to another. One website became thousands. Thousands became millions. Suddenly, information could move around the planet in seconds.
But here's where things get really interesting. The biggest change wasn't technological, it was psychological. For most of human history, information was difficult to access. If you wanted knowledge, you had to search for it. Books were limited. Experts were rare. Answers took time.
Then, almost overnight, answers became instant. The average person gained access to more information than entire generations had possessed before them. It sounded like a dream, and in many ways it was. But every technological breakthrough creates unexpected consequences.
The same network that connected people also competed for their attention. The same technology that delivered knowledge also delivered distraction. For the first time in history, billions of humans carried a gateway to the world's information in their pockets.
And that changed behavior in ways nobody in the 1950s predicted. They imagined smarter machines. They imagined automated homes. What they didn't imagine was a world where people would spend hours each day staring into small glowing screens.
That's because predicting technology is easier than predicting human behavior. The machine itself is often the simple part. The difficult part is understanding what people will actually do once the machine arrives.
And that mistake appears again and again throughout history, because while the people of the 1950s were imagining the future, they were unknowingly revealing something much deeper, not where technology was going, but how humans think about progress itself.
The people of the 1950s weren't uniquely bad at predicting the future. In fact, they were doing exactly what humans have always done. They looked at the biggest changes happening around them and assumed those trends would continue forever. It feels logical, and sometimes it even works.
But history rarely moves in straight lines. New inventions appear. Unexpected discoveries change direction. Entire industries rise and fall. The future usually arrives through surprises, not predictions. That's why even experts repeatedly miss some of the most important transformations.
Think about it. Very few people predicted social media. Very few people predicted that a small device in your pocket would become your camera, map, newspaper, music player, shopping center, and communication hub all at the same time.
The strange part is that once these inventions exist, they feel obvious. Looking backward, everything seems predictable. Looking forward, almost nothing does. Human beings are incredibly good at explaining the past and surprisingly bad at seeing the future.
Psychologists sometimes call this the illusion of inevitability. After something happens, our brains create a story that makes the outcome seem obvious. We convince ourselves that it was always going to happen, but before it happened, almost nobody saw it coming.
That's exactly what makes those old predictions so fascinating. They aren't really records of the future, they're records of the present. They reveal what people feared, what they hoped for, and what they believed technology would solve.
In the 1950s, many people believed machines would eliminate hard work. They imagined automated kitchens, automated factories, and automated homes. They thought technology would create enormous amounts of free time.
In some ways, they were right. Many tasks became dramatically easier, but instead of simply working less, humans often found new things to do. New jobs appeared, new industries emerged, new expectations replaced old ones.
That's another lesson hidden inside these predictions. Technology changes. Human nature changes much more slowly. Our tools evolve rapidly, but our desires, fears, ambitions, and social instincts often remain surprisingly familiar.
And that may explain why some of the most accurate predictions weren't about machines at all. They were about people. Because beneath every invention, every breakthrough, and every futuristic dream, the same human brain is still making decisions.
Which leads to one final question. Out of all the predictions made about 2026, what did they actually get right?
Because when you look closely, the answer is far more surprising than flying cars, robots, or even artificial intelligence.
So what did the people of the 1950s actually get right? Surprisingly, quite a lot. They correctly sensed that communication would become faster, information would become easier to access, and technology would become deeply woven into everyday life. They didn't predict the exact devices, but they understood the direction.
They also believed the world would become more connected. Distances would feel smaller. Conversations would happen instantly across continents. In many ways, that prediction was remarkably accurate. Today, a message can travel around the planet in seconds.
They predicted automation would expand into daily life, not always through humanoid robots, but through machines quietly handling tasks that once required human effort. From navigation systems to digital assistants, parts of that future arrived in forms they never expected.
And perhaps most importantly, they predicted that technology would become personal. It would move closer to the individual. Instead of giant machines serving institutions, powerful tools would eventually serve ordinary people. That turned out to be one of their most accurate forecasts.
But here's the pattern connecting all their successful predictions. The people who came closest to predicting the future focused less on specific inventions and more on underlying trends. They looked at human needs rather than futuristic gadgets.
Humans want faster communication. Humans want easier access to knowledge. Humans want convenience, connection, entertainment, and control over their environment. The technologies changed, but those desires remained surprisingly constant.
That's why many flashy predictions failed. Flying cars looked exciting, but they didn't solve a problem most people desperately needed solved. Meanwhile, instant access to information transformed daily life because it answered a real human desire.
The future isn't always built around the most dramatic invention. Sometimes it's built around the most useful one. And usefulness often looks boring at first, until one day nobody can imagine living without it.
When people in the 1950s imagined 2026, they expected technology to transform the world.
What they didn't fully understand was that technology would also transform the way humans think, communicate, and experience reality itself.
And that realization leads to the most important lesson hidden inside every prediction ever made.
Because the story was never really about 2026. It was always about us.
Looking back, it's easy to laugh at the flying cars, underwater cities, and vacations on the moon. Some of those predictions feel charming now. Others feel completely unrealistic. But focusing only on what they got wrong misses the most interesting part of the story.
Because the people of the 1950s weren't really seeing 2026. They were seeing themselves. Their predictions reflected the hopes, fears, dreams, and assumptions of the world they lived in. The future became a mirror that reflected the present.
And when you realize that, something strange happens. Those old predictions stop looking like failed forecasts. They become historical snapshots, a record of what people believed progress meant, a record of what they thought humanity was becoming.
In many ways, every generation does the same thing. We imagine tomorrow using the tools, fears, and expectations of today. We assume the biggest changes will come from the trends we can already see. But history has a habit of arriving through doors nobody was watching.
That's why predicting the future is so difficult. The most important inventions often seem small at first. The biggest transformations usually look ordinary in the beginning. And the technologies that truly change society are rarely the ones people spend decades talking about.
The internet didn't arrive looking like science fiction. Smartphones didn't feel like the future at first. Even many modern breakthroughs began as niche ideas that seemed unimportant to most people. Then, slowly, almost invisibly, they changed the world.
And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside those old magazines and television programs. The future isn't a destination waiting to be discovered. It's a process. Millions of small decisions, inventions, accidents, and unexpected consequences slowly building something nobody can fully predict.
Which means that somewhere around us right now, something ordinary may already be shaping the next 50 years, something most people barely notice, something future generations might look back on and wonder how anyone failed to see its importance.
The people of the 1950s got one thing absolutely right. The world did change beyond recognition. Communication became instant, information became limitless, technology became woven into everyday life.
They just misunderstood what change would look like. They expected the future to arrive with noise, spectacle, and giant machines. Instead, much of it arrived quietly. One screen, one connection, and one idea at a time.
So the next time you unlock your phone, make a video call, ask an intelligent machine a question, or access the world's knowledge in seconds,
Remember that there was a time when all of it sounded impossible.
and remember something else.
70 years from now, people may look back at our predictions the same way we look back at theirs.
Because the future has always played the same trick on humanity.
We think we're predicting it.
But most of the time,
We're revealing ourselves.
if this video changed the way you think about the future, let us know in the comments. Which 1950s prediction surprises you the most?
And if you know someone who loves history, science, or the strange stories hidden inside everyday life, share this video with them.
Subscribe to Cortex Tide for more journeys into the ideas that shaped humanity.
Until next time, thanks for watching.